This is Leah DeVellis of Pivot Magazine, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Pivot Magazine podcast show, where we love to share stories of Canadian entrepreneurs at different stages of their businesses. As many of you know, we are part of the Startup Canada network. New for 2014, we are taking a closer look at the Startup Canada communities and digging deeper into conversation with community leads as we share specific stories from their community. This month, our city is Prince George. I'm excited to welcome Shauna Harper, the lead for Startup Prince George in Northern BC. Shauna is a digital marketing strategist and co-owner of Live Work Communications. They help organizations with the adoption of technology into their communication and marketing strategy. But today she's joining us to talk about her role in the city as the lead for StartupPG. Prince George joined the Startup Canada network just short of a year ago as one of the cities to pilot the program. Hi, Shauna.
Hey, Leah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
This episode is called Nurturing the Entrepreneurial Spirit and Can-Do Attitude. So, Shauna, we want this conversation to really help entrepreneurs like yourself figure out how to nurture and build community around themselves like you have done in PG. Can you tell us a bit about the city of Prince George?
Sure, I'd love to. So Prince George, for those of you that don't know, we call ourselves Northern BC, but we're really kind of in the middle of BC. But we're the northern capital, and that's why everyone usually refers to us as North. We're about 80,000 people or so, and main business in town is resource. We do obviously have a university, as well as the Northern Health is up here as well. So the biggest employers are Northern Health, the university, and then many of the resource companies, because there's oil mining, all of the different resource businesses up here in the north. So
now, StartupPG, what type of business structure do you have?
I know it's funny because that's a question that I always wonder about the other startup communities, kind of how they've structured themselves. We're currently we're not a nonprofit, we're not a business, we're not an organization at all. We're just a collection of entrepreneurs that have decided that we want the startup community here in Prince George. We're now kind of toying with whether or not we go with the nonprofit model, and we're just trying to figure out when that's a good step to take. But right now we're still nonprofit. We're just a bunch of entrepreneurs. We have no structure.
And how did this get started? How did it come together?
I had gone down to Kelowna to participate in Startup Weekend and came home and really wanted this community here in the north, and was having a conversation with somebody that we were at that time co-working with together. And he's like, why don't we just create the group? We'll create a drinks and see who comes. And if nothing else, we'll have the two of us and we can go for drinks once a month kind of thing. And so it really kind of started really on a whim with us creating a Eventbrite invite for startup drinks. And then from there, it kind of snowballed into what we are now, which is, I think we're at 6 or 7 different projects now, programs, where it's all led by volunteers. And it's kind of taken a life of its own.
What's the local response been?
It's actually been amazing. I really didn't think the city would be really on board. We don't actually have a thriving tech community. I mean, we're definitely trying to push it, but we don't have that thriving tech community that normally you think of when you think of startup communities. So I didn't think people would want to come on board, but we started off with Twitter. And again, most of our city isn't on Twitter, and got early adoption. And from there, we got a lot of media attention. And the one kind of, I think, superpower of a small town is that, the city doesn't have a whole lot to cover. And so we're always in the media, and that really helped us with visibility. So,
what else has worked in terms of forming StartupPG?
Do you mean programs and stuff like that, or?
Yeah. Or bringing people together.
So for us, the Startup Drinks was one kind of, obviously, the first event, and we were meeting, and the Startup Drinks, the whole foundation of it is you can't pitch to the people that are coming. It's really just casual drinks and people coming together once a month. So when we started to have those consistently, I think we were probably 6 or 8 months in, and we realized, at least 25 to 30 people were showing up. It became a popular event in the city. We felt pretty comfortable in creating our first Startup Weekend. And so we went to the Kauffman Foundation, the Startup Weekend, I think their website, startupweekend.org. And we got to take a look at how people ran startup weekends. And so we decided to bring our first startup weekend to Prince George. And that was kind of our flagship program, kind of where everything else kind of spiraled. People got a taste of what the startup community was about. And then from there, we started to roll off programs like the hackathon. After that, it was the creative makerspace. We had a makerspace come into town. So we held an entrepreneurial night there. And then recently, just about 2 months ago, it was the mentorship challenge. And so we held a mentor to mentor event. And that was another program that we had. So we've had a number of different programs. Yeah.
What has been the role of Startup Canada in fostering communities like Prince George?
It really helped. I don't know if the city necessarily saw the effect, but I know I definitely did as someone that wanted to lead and create this community. And I think that's what's really important, is that a lot of times entrepreneurs in certain communities, especially the size of Prince George at 80,000, starting this up was quite new for our community. And I felt like I was standing on a soapbox trying to scream that I wanted a startup community. And so Startup Canada had kind of rolled in around the same time that we were just starting up these drinks and trying to convince people that a startup community and a thriving entrepreneurial community was important to entrepreneurs at every level. And Startup Canada came in, Victoria came in with her roadshow, and it just all of a sudden was this thing where I was like, this is exactly it. People are actually singing this song right across the entire nation. And so when it came to opening up for the pilot communities, I wasn't sure if StartupPG was ready yet, because I kept on thinking, okay, this is exactly what we need, but maybe we're too new, because there was, Edmonton and Waterloo and Calgary and all of these communities that I had seen already in the news with thriving startup communities. And I thought, we're just way too new as a startup community. We're not meant to be here yet. Maybe let's wait for a year. And serendipitously, our startup weekend ended, and we had the same amount of money in our community fund that it cost us to join as a startup community. And so it was almost like the sign from the universe that we needed to join. And since joining, it has really given me the structure, for the support of the national leaders right across, and being able to share things that work, things that don't. And for me, I kept on thinking, okay, I want to take a look at what Edmonton is doing, what Calgary's doing, what, Waterloo and Montreal and stuff. And I realized right here in BC, one of the most influential groups to us in PG has actually been Startup Smithers. We've had them come to our startup weekend. We've had Alan give me advice on the co-working space. And so it's actually been quite surprising where we get the mentorship and how we build the friendships right across the nation. So.
What's been the value of joining this larger national conversation?
I think the biggest value is the network, especially after this past November. I was invited to go to Startup Canada Day on the Hill and actually speak. And as much as that was obviously fantastic to be able to speak about the Prince George community, what I loved the most about it was actually being able to meet, Rivers from PEI and Noah from Montreal, and, all these people that I had heard about and talked to via Skype and Google Plus, and like Chris from Winnipeg, and actually see them in person. And I didn't realize how important having that camaraderie of people that understand kind of your passion behind growing a startup community, and also your obstacles. I mean, there's some very clear common obstacles government-wise. There's clear obstacles organizationally. In many of the communities, whether you're 80,000 or 1.5 million, there's usually a pushback by certain organizations and hierarchies and things like that. So being able to frankly talk to people and kind of cut through almost the BS of growing a community, you wanting to grow it because not just to help my business, but to help the greater community. And I think every one of these leads looks at it not so much to grow their business. I think that's a ripple effect in the sense that their business gets visibility, but they all go in it because they want to have this community right in their local community. So,
what has been some of the challenges? Obviously, Prince George isn't one of the major Canadian cities.
Yeah.
What have the challenges been?
That has been, I think, our biggest thing is trying to change the story of Prince George. And I know that that's obviously a greater national media campaign. But for me, I came into Prince George 4 years ago, literally kicking and screaming, telling my husband, look, 2 years, that's it. I got a calendar. I'm marking down the days. And I had no idea how captivated I would be by this city. And really being an entrepreneur for 9, 10 years prior to coming to Prince George, I didn't realize what a hotbed a smaller community like this would be for entrepreneurs, in the sense of, as much as our startup community is just starting up, there's huge, great support for the entrepreneurial spirit and for really trying to nurture that. And I think because we're somewhat remote, that piece is kind of the reason why people really want to try to push forward. And so the obstacles are really trying to change that story across the nation of smaller communities being just as vital, even though our populations may not be as large as obviously urban centers, that we do feed into urban centers. A lot of people make their first step we become the farm teams of the urban centers. And I think nurturing those farm teams is just as important as nurturing the urban centers, because so many of these innovative ideas get nurtured to a place where people feel supported and feel like they can take chances. Cost of living is lower. I mean, that's a bonus. You can risk more as an entrepreneur when you're not paying $1 million for housing.
That's a good point.
So those are the types of things where I think that's our biggest obstacle, is to change the perception of smaller cities and smaller towns like ours, to say, look, we're a vital part of the Canadian economy, but at the same time, we don't have the population, so the tax dollars really, to sustain our local governments providing support for entrepreneurs. How can we take a look at maybe a national conversation that an entrepreneur is just as valuable in Prince George as we are from Toronto or from Vancouver, or from Montreal, so that every entrepreneur is someone's willing to put up a shingle, willing to, say, I'm going to not go with the norm, but go out on my own. How can we support them so that there is a larger chance or a higher chance of success?
Well, risk is part of being an entrepreneur.
It is,
right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
What have been some of the best moments in this journey with StartupPG?
I think definitely being in Ottawa for Startup Day on the Hill was definitely a highlight for me personally. The other side is we weren't necessarily going to participate in the mentorship challenge this past year. And one of the leads for this challenge was actually out of Prince George, Kaylee Vandermeer. And she said to me, look, we need to do something locally here in Prince George for the mentorship. And it just got kind of the ball rolling. And we ended up launching, I believe, one of our best programs ever, which was the Mentor to Mentor event. And it was just so well received. It really pushed the way I saw the business community in my city. It was all about not just mentoring in one direction, but mutual mentorship, meaning that at every stage of the business, people can be mentors, whether you're brand new or you're a senior level person. You each have different things to offer. And it was opening up mentorship with deeper conversations. And the city, which I thought was going to be fairly conservative, responded in droves. And the event sold out. It was like minus, I don't know what, that night. And people showed up. And it was just the energy of that really gave me that hope that I always wanted to see in the city. And so it was one of those happy accidents, I think.
Yes. Well, part of the model, I understand, is disrupting that traditional assumption about what mentorship should be.
It is. And it really, because I've been leading the startup community, I mean, I'm pushing almost 40. And so it's something where many of the people in the startup community happen to be younger. Even just in my interactions with them, I realize they're mentoring me every single day. It's not just an age thing. And I think oftentimes we see mentorship as whoever's older mentors, when really, especially the way the world is working right now in technology, that certain things are going to be more intuitive for the younger population, and to be able to know and understand the technology and see how it can solve problems or create companies. But at the same time, what's traditionally in business about building relationships still holds true. And so if we were to able to merge those and have open conversations, we're able to then build these kind of super companies that understand both the traditional value of relationships and people, and we combine it with our understanding with technology and wanting things quickly and solving problems that are actually relevant. So.
Well, I think it's really important in terms of fostering community to have that organic mentorship relationship happening.
Yeah, we found, that event there had people that were, pushing 65, 70, definitely retired already, if not, within the next few years, to people that, the youngest person there, I think he was like 18 or 19. And so it was just amazing to just hear the buzz of the room going. And I really thought that when we mirrored it actually with the Super Soul Sunday Oprah thing where she had people in a ball pit. And so we picked out these questions from a ball pit, and I thought for sure people would run out the door. But not only did people not run out the door, by the end of the night, they were just buzzing and being like, thank you so much for this. And so we're trying to figure a way, how can we bring this now to more communities and to share this? So those of you looking for great programs for your startup community, that's definitely one of them.
In terms of lessons learned in this process, what have been some of the big lessons?
I think the biggest lesson is to get help sooner. I know that initially I didn't reach out for help soon enough, and from it we had certain people commit and then some people didn't, and I think it's really important to build a team around you and rally the people around you that really want to also believe in the cause. Luckily now we do have a team of people that each run a separate program so that I can focus on the bigger vision side of it. So each of these guys one person runs Startup Weekend, another the hackathon, another person the mentor to mentor. And so it builds me a little bit more capacity. And I think for me, it was learning kind of how to empower these people to take over these different programs so that I could bring in new programs and bring in kind of the creative side, which I love to see what else is new, having the conversations with people nationally. Oh, Noah from Montreal talked about, a mashup. Let's see if we can do that here in Prince George, and being able to have that almost new energy come in, because I'm not focusing on just running the current programs. And the current programs, they'll run their course, as long as their people are attending, we'll continue to run them, but then I don't end up burning out. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons, is that we ran way too many where I was involved with just too many of them. And I woke up one day, I was just like, I can't do any more. I'm burnt out. I'm running a full-time company above and beyond volunteering for the startup community. And it was very clear that I hadn't set up the structure properly. So in 2014, one of my goals was to make sure that not only do I empower these people, but really step back and trust that they can, they're just as passionate and that they can run it, so that it gives me the endurance to continue.
Any other plans for 2014?
2014, not so much. We're focusing definitely on the creative makerspace. I think that's our biggest goal for 2014. The other side is to definitely take a look at the other communities that are joining on board. I know that I had a conversation with Kelsey from Nanaimo, and I got some great ideas. And so just being really open to where the connections and the people are going to take give us ideas and where it will take our startup community. For sure, obviously, opportunities like this on Pivot really help the Prince George community to get visibility. So yeah, that's about it for 2014. Don't want to over plan, but definitely, Startup Canada's in the lineup and talking more to the startup communities.
Wonderful. So for people that would like to ask you questions or see what is going on in your community, where do they go?
So the best way is for me to get a hold of me personally. Twitter is the best way at Shauna Harper. And then for the startup community, if you want to take a look, I think our website is one of the best tools that Startup Canada has given our community. And so if you go to StartupPG.org, you're able to see kind of what else is going on in the Prince George community, but really not so much, because obviously if you're living in your own city, you could care less what's happening in Prince George, but more so to take a look at our website to see how we're using it in order to build our community. I think one of the best value adds of being a Startup Canada community is the website that also provided us with a virtual home base for our community. The community organizations funnel their events into our webpage. We're able to promote our own events. We have a blog that we update, and we're able to really be kind of the home base for the entrepreneurs in our community via this site that Startup Canada has given us. So startuppg.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Shauna.
Thanks.
And this is Leah DeVellis from Pivot. Please keep in mind that we will be running regular podcasts. You can download the MP3 version and listen to it while you're at the gym, making dinner, or on your drive home. We will be continuing next week with another entrepreneur from Prince George. Hope to see you back here.